Howdy y'all, Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back with a new weekly update. It's been a few weeks since I have done one, so things are gonna look quite a bit different out here. So let's walk through and see what's going on. All right, we're starting things off over here like we normally do. Now, the last update that I filmed still had all of the eggplants growing here and then the remaining tomato plants growing here. As you can see, obviously, those are gone now. While we haven't had particularly cold weather, it has been cool enough that the eggplants, the flavor was really bitter and not very good. So I went ahead and I took those down. And then the tomatoes, there were some rodents or something coming in and eating them. So even though they were still alive and still producing, I harvested all the ripe ones that didn't have any sort of damage on them, and then I cut the rest of the plants down. That opened this area up, but you can really see that the broccoli and the cauliflower that are in this bed have gotten super huge. Honestly, I didn't realize that broccoli plants got this big because in previous years that I've grown them, they were in containers and fabric grow bags, so they didn't get this big. But I am starting to get little heads of broccoli on some of these plants. Now there are some cauliflower plants in here as well, but I don't have any heads of cauliflower growing just yet. I believe that this is the Yadfa, sort of like the Chinese broccoli type right here, so that's really cool. We'll be able to have some stir-fried broccoli soon. And then on this front row along here are the hybrid types. I'm trying to remember the names of them. It's escaping my brain right now, but there are some heads of those growing. So we do have broccoli, cauliflower, those type of brassicas just really starting to take off and produce really well. This bed right here is the kale and the collard greens, and I'm gonna come around to the front side of this bed because I guess it just rained and everything's wet, so all those leaves are brushing against my pants and making my pants wet. But looky here, look at this kale. Now I did harvest a ton for Thanksgiving, but I haven't been out here to harvest any since then. Honestly, I haven't harvested anything except those tomatoes, so it has been a little bit chaotic in terms of what's going on outside of the garden. So the garden is just basically taking care of itself right now, but it's doing a pretty good job of it. These kale plants are doing really well, and then these collard greens down here, just for reference, the size of these leaves is massive. So I mean, and it's completely solid. You can kind of see the soil line there. But other than that, the leaves are just thick and lush and huge and healthy, and there are caterpillars, but because I don't use any sort of pesticides or anything, that's to be expected. I'm okay just picking them off and using the greens otherwise. But those two beds, where most of the garden is currently planted, are doing really well. And since we've had rain recently, I haven't had to water in several weeks, at least hand watering, so pretty cool deal. Now these beds over here, they are looking a little worse for wear. The last video, I believe the sweet peppers and the okra were still growing. Because these are farther away from the house, the cold weather did severely impact the sweet peppers and the okra. The okra was starting to get sick, but the sweet peppers just kind of fizzled out. So I cut them all down, harvested any remaining bell peppers and shishitos, and then just cut them down. The okra I cut down. Obviously I left all the basil and it has died off. So I need to come remove dead spent plants out of here. What is currently growing in here is stevia, but it looks not great. And then we have rutabagas here. These are doing pretty well. More rutabagas here. This is marjoram, and that's doing pretty well. Everything else I just need to cut down and remove. Then we have kohlrabi. This is doing really well. So you can see they're starting to form like their alien bulb shapes. Another name for these is German turnip. They're not a root vegetable. As you can see, it's growing above the ground, but they are round once they form their final shape. So the way that I like to use these is to dice them up and roast them in the oven like you do potatoes. They're really good that way. And then this bed also removed all of the summer crops that were growing, the sweet peppers and the okra. I need to remove the basil, obviously. We have some beets here. They're doing okay. And then we have turnips here, also doing okay. The stuff in this bed and that bed isn't as healthy as the stuff in those beds, but it is what it is. And I didn't really heavily plant these two beds since I am going to be changing them up a bit. Once I get the arch structure that goes between them, I'm gonna have to take them apart and kind of modify them a bit. So I didn't want to heavily plant them with a bunch of crops. So that's kind of what's going on here. I have some ant issues that I still need to take care of that I have not yet. But other than that, you know, just working on growing turnips. All right, over here is the garlic. It is looking pretty good. I do still need to mulch it. I know the last video I talked about how I needed to mulch it. So hopefully within the next week or two, I can get that done. Now, whatever cloves were planted in these two, none of them sprouted. I don't understand that. All of the other ones, at least some of them sprouted. Maybe they still will because these look relatively new. But as of right now, nothing has come up in those two, just the remainder. But they all look pretty good. Once I get some mulch in there, I should probably go ahead and give them a dose of fertilizer. Then they should, you know, continue to grow and be really healthy. Now, over here is some chaos and some fizzled out plants and some plants that are doing pretty all right. So these snapdragons, these are the night and day snapdragons from Botanical Interest, and they are basically unkillable. Yeah, they're still trucking along. They're blooming, they're healthy. They look fantastic. They lasted through last winter, into the spring, through the summer, into this winter now. On down is a lot of the cover crops that I planted for soil health and erosion prevention and stuff like that. Those are doing pretty well. So we have some daikon radish here. That's what this guy is, this big guy here. And then we have some Japanese red mustard. And then what else did I plant in here? Oh, the beans were already fizzled out. So really what is left are those two items and then some crimson clover in a few places throughout here. These are snapdragons that got transplanted in. They'll overwinter, and then in the spring they'll have a pretty good growth happen, and then we should see lots of snapdragons bloom. Other than that, all of these annuals are slowly dying out, and I'll just cut them off at the soil level, let the roots break down. But the perennial items and then these cold hardy items are all looking pretty well. I think that might be cilantro. I didn't plant it, it's a volunteer. If it's not cilantro, oh no, that's not cilantro. That is the feverfew plant that was here. That is cilantro. And then this is more of the Japanese red mustard. I'm using this to help break up the heavy clay because they have really deep tap roots. But we have echinacea there that's doing okay. The salvia will overwinter fine. It's perennial. It's gonna be bigger and even more crazy next year because it is a Texas native, so it's just gonna go nuts. And then it's sort of the mirror image down here of cover crops and fizzling out annuals and snapdragons and things. So you know, I really need to do some cleanup. I just haven't had the time to devote to doing it. And then when I do have the time, the weather isn't cooperating. So here we are. The garden is a mess, but so am I. All right, so this is where I planted all the bok choy I planted. Most of it did not do well at all, but these on the top rows look pretty good. These are actually almost ready. These are like a baby size. These are great for stir fries. So I may harvest them to make a stir fry tomorrow. Today is Pizza Friday, so I'm not going to interfere with that. But these would make an excellent stir fry with some chicken. So that is something to look forward to in terms of dinner right from the garden. This tatsoi looks like maybe a little bit of fertilizer would be helpful. I haven't fertilized at all in a while, so it would probably be beneficial to the whole garden. Just, you know, still catching up on life and things. All right, peppers. I need to clean up. As you can see, most of them have died, except the top row, which is really weird, because you would think they would have had the same weather exposure as the rest, but here we are, still green, not green. I am going to remove them all, however. Strawberries, they're reaching their winter, not looking so great stage. I do have frost protection for them if it does get colder than it has been. I think maybe the coldest morning has been 29. It hasn't been horrifically cold, but they do look pretty good considering they have been through a freeze or two. And then this one is more of the same cleanup needed. Yeah, things just got away from me as they usually do around this time of year. It's busy for everybody, I know. So this one, just clean up and all of that. But, you know, I am happy with the winter garden that is still producing because it does look really good. This part over here especially looks really healthy. There's a lot of food growing just in that section. Heck, the kale and the collards would feed us for several days before we had to worry about, you know, are we going to have a green vegetable today? So really happy to see that. Oh yeah, I didn't point this out earlier. There are Brussels sprouts back here. They didn't really get much light with the eggplants growing, so they are still very, very small, but now they're kind of out in the open, exposed to sunlight on days that it's not ridiculously cloudy. So they are starting to grow. Eventually we should start to see a little bit Brussels sprouts in the armpits of things. We have oregano that's perennial. It's gonna grow back and be fine. Another oregano that is a perennial. This basil is still holding on, I think because it has the protection of the house. It hasn't really experienced a frost yet. And then, if I remember correctly, this is a cabbage. And I think that these are Brussels sprouts as well, but things are growing. And that makes me happy. So as you can tell, there is a ton of maintenance stuff that I need to do out here. I need to clean up some things, fertilize some things, mulch some things. Eventually, I will get around to it. Like I said, hopefully things start to slow down everywhere else for me so that I can spend 15-20 minutes a day out here until I'm able to catch up. But I do hope that you guys enjoyed this look at what's going on in the garden right now, even though most of it is fairly ugly. But if you did like this video and you want to see how the garden progresses and changes from week to week, please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, do all those different YouTube-y things. But until next time, go find a way to get those hands dirty. Bye!